The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's August the 21st, 2024. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And as the countdown continues to the Miami Hurricanes' trip to the Swamp in Gainesville for the season opener against the Florida Gators. Really one of the more talked about games of week 0 and 1 in college football. People seem very intrigued by this matchup. And one of the reasons, I think, Matt, and we've talked about this a little bit, and we'll elaborate a little bit today, is the perception of like win or else for Billy Napier at Florida. And people are trying to attach Mario Cristobal to that type of mindset too. We mentioned a while back that sports books in Vegas have Mario as the third likeliest coach to get let go this season, even though we here in Miami know that there's zero chance of that happening. But right now we're talking about perception around the country, and Billy Napier, of course, is number 1 on that list. They're already penciling in Lane Kiffin to be the next head coach in Gainesville. There is no question that Billy Napier is dead man walking, and the game that he cannot afford to lose is this season opener against Miami. There's no doubt about it. So today we discuss on the website, as part of our continuing coverage and lead up to the season, is this game between Miami and Florida a must-win game for Billy Napier and Mario Cristobal? And there's a lot of directions, Matt, that you could go with that. I would say it is a must-win for Billy Napier. I don't think it's a must-win for Mario Cristobal. I think it's a must-want-to-win for Mario Cristobal. I think the whole program unquestionably is being tested here in this game, as we've talked about. So much buildup over multiple years, recruiting classes, NIL, commitment by the university, all leading towards being able to win games like this one in Gainesville. But a must-win, Matt, I say no. What say you?
Well, first, before we get to that, I want to give a shout out to 2 of my biggest fans because they've earned it. Cane Gang's Lump or Cane Gang Slump. I'm not sure which one he prefers to go by. Shodell's negativity deters me from watching this channel. It's so annoying. So I'd like to thank him for adhering to my wishes, trying to get off this damn morning show. And then one of my other people I'm a big fan of is Kevin. I don't know how to pronounce this. MI9LD, Meinold, Kevin Meinold. He responds to my buddy Cane Gang's Lump, and he says, "Why do they let him talk? I don't mind some negative if they know what they're saying, and it's true, but he's just rambling BS," with this emoji. Just don't watch live and fast forward through him talking. That's what I do. So I'm going to talk for as long as possible right now.
And then there's other people that get mad that I take a couple minutes to set the show up when we start the show.
I'm going to make my buddy fast forward the whole show. Even when you're talking, I'm going to go like this. Just so he thinks I'm talking, and then he misses the whole show just to mess with him, because that's what I do for my friends. That's how nice I am. So anyway, yeah. Look, I wrote this story this morning. I take full credit for my negativity. Like, listen, I've said it before. These people fast forward what I say, so they're not going to hear this anyway, but I'll say it to them again. The reason why I'm so negative is because apparently I'm a real Miami fan. And I'm a reporter, obviously. I can't also be a fan. But being real, like, if you're a Miami fan for 20 years, why should you be so positive and happy? Like, are you out of your damn minds? Like, what alternate reality are you living in that every year you think that a media person like myself should be like, they're going to be amazing this year. Everything's great. The quarterback, the running back, the defense is going to be amazing. Like, that's what you want to hear for 20 years and be wrong every year? Or do you want to hear the truth? Like, I don't know what news channel these people watch, but it's not this one, because I tell the truth as I see it. In today's day and age, people realize there's multiple truths, apparently. One party can fix the country, the other party can't. It used to be both parties can do it. It's just they do it differently, So now the big question is, can Mario Cristobal fix the Miami Hurricanes, or will it take somebody else to do it? And I think we're going to start finding out with this Florida game, which is why it's a must-win game, as I wrote this morning, because, while Billy Napier obviously is on the hot seat, I don't care what happens in Florida. We play him once more next year. I don't care who the coach is next year for Florida. Whatever, man. After that, they're probably going to be dodging us again because, that's what they do when we get good, right? And hopefully we'll be good. Mario's certainly trying to build it that way. But like I said in yesterday's morning's show, this is, for the very first time, Mario Cristobal's team. I think there's 3 guys on the team that weren't his recruits. And they're pretty good guys. He wouldn't cut them, right? I think Xavier Restrepo, maybe Jacoby George, and I think maybe Jalen Rivers. I don't remember who the third one is. But they're starters. Whoever the guys are that are left over from He Who Can't Be Named era, they're starters, right? Mario didn't have to go to the portal and grab a replacement for them. They weren't one of the 9 new starters that he's going to have on the field, maybe even 10 new starters, depending on Deani Hill, maybe even 11 if Jalen Alderman somehow, Wesley Basaint has been playing great, so he's not going to be passed up. But Jalen Alderman is sort of like a third starter at linebacker. In a 4-2-5, it's hard to have a third starter at linebacker, but if there was a third starter, he'd be it. Okay. So anyway, the point of the story this morning is that it's a must-win game, obviously, on Florida's side. Obviously, for the head coach. They need to win for their coach. And if they like their coach, that's a big incentive. If they don't like their coach, as you can, they almost laid down with He Who Can't Be Named coaching, right? And they almost tried to lose games to get him out of there. When you don't like your coach, that team's going to play pretty badly for numerous reasons. There's a reason they don't like those coaches. And, Tua said it recently, how Brian Flores was berating him. And Josh Gaddis, that's all we heard out of the quarterbacks room back when Josh Gaddis was here, berating those quarterbacks, yelling at them after every single game, how terrible they are. Why can't they be better? That sort of thing. That's facts. Okay. That's what I know for sure happened. And now it's different. Players perform better, in my opinion, when they're being uplifted. A lot of coaches out there feel they can get more out of players when they beat them down, make them angry, make them mad, they'll work harder. There's 2 different philosophies. And again, like you're talking about, whether you believe in Republicans or Democrats getting this thing fixed, it's not both will work anymore. One will work, one won't. And that's the way I see it with these coaching techniques. If you're yelling at your players, that will work with some guys. But in today's player, that worked in the old days a lot better. In today's day and age, where guys can just up and leave and they're getting paid and they're fat and happy eating hamburgers on Cam Ward's dollar, good luck telling guys how awful they are and how they suck. Good luck getting them to play great and not leave that team, okay? So to me, the best thing you can do as a coach now is just to tell guys how great they are and then fill in, hey, but you know what, you could do better, blah, 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 blah. It's called constructive criticism. Gary Ferman never gives it to me. He just yells at me, but that would be nice. Constructive criticism, Gary, look it up in the dictionary. That's what you should be doing to me instead of yelling at me how bad my stories are and how I'm so negative. So anyway, why is this a must-win game for Mario Cristobal? Like I said, it's his team, okay? There's only 2 games that anyone cares about for Miami in a lousy schedule this year, okay? And that's Florida, and that's Florida State. I mean, Miami, you can pretend out there that, but Louisville's going to be a really good team. You can pretend that the Virginia Tech's going to be a really good team, and they might be, but fans don't care. Louisville could be ranked 18th, and Miami could be ranked 15th, and it's a huge game, and Florida could be unranked.
I could see Louisville Miami fans on the road on national TV. There's a good chance of that, I think.
If you told Miami fans that Louisville was even, let's say, 5th in the country, and that Florida's unranked, I think there's a high probability that many of those Miami fans, if they're told you can only win one of those 2 games, which game are you picking? They're saying, I'd rather beat Florida. Even though Louisville's in conference matters way more for Miami making the AC title game and the playoffs potentially, they just want to beat Florida. And so when a coach loses to Florida, when a coach loses to Florida State, it has way more repercussions in recruiting, in perception, in the state of Florida, in the mentality of, hey, I got to go to work now with my 10 Florida buddies, and on Saturday night, I'm going out with 3 Florida State friends, and I got to freaking deal with this SH now? Hell no, and you're going to blame Mario for it. So I get it. This is the second biggest game of the year. I'm going to put Florida State ahead of Florida, not even, okay? Because Florida State's in conference. They were undefeated in the regular season last year. They're still the team that Miami plays every year. So yeah, Florida State's more important than Florida, but Florida's right there, man. And then there's a huge drop off to the rest of the schedule. There's no Clemson. There's not even like an NC State, North Carolina. You know, there's nobody else that's gonna be an interesting game. Next best game is Louisville. Best game after that's Virginia Tech. And like, you know, it's a yawn for a lot of fans. As important as those games are from a University of Miami perspective, they don't get fans excited. It's like, yeah, you know, when you were in the Big East, you got to beat Temple. You know, you got to beat Boston College was good once in a blue moon. But like, did fans like go crazy for those games? Not so much, unless Doug Flutie was playing quarterback. So, so yeah, this is a must-win for Mario. There's only 2 games that matter, and like, you got to win both of them, in my opinion. Like to say you are back and you are the team in this state and in this country, and at some point you got to do that. Why not this year when the schedule's easy versus, you know, next year when it's going to be a lot more difficult? When I think there's Notre Dame on the schedule next year, there's a much more difficult schedule next year. And they have Cam Ward for 1 year. Damian Martinez already said he's leaving after this year, unless he gets hurt or something. Like, he's going to be gone, okay? So now you need a new running back. You're going to have a first-time starting quarterback, unless you get another portal guy. And, like, it's just going to be a different team. So you spent all the money on this team right now. You got 4 defensive linemen who you bought in to start, who are all seniors, transfers, other than Ruben Bain. Okay, I'm calling them all starters because they're going to be rotating. Okay, Elijah Austin's going to play a lot. Simeon Barrow inside. Tyler Barron is basically a starter. C.J. Clark is going to be a starter, right? So that's seniors who will be gone. You're reshaping this team every year now when you do NIL portal guys as 1 year takes, and there's 9 or 10 of them are starting. Like, you're going to automatically off the cuff, you got 10 new guys you got to replace as starters the next year. So, like, to me, this year, you know, I know I've said that this year 10 wins, next year playoffs, but that was before Miami had all these additions in the portal, in the second portal window, including Cam Ward. Okay, this is, well, yeah, Cam Ward, and then this is also, Cam Ward came, I guess, early, but you understand what I'm saying. This is also before the schedule came out, because I was saying this last year. I wasn't saying this year with this roster and the schedule. So to me now, it's become way more about this year, because the schedule is going to be way easier than next year. They took 9 guys and paid a fortune to have them start as transfers. So to me, this is the playoff year now, because if you're not going to make the playoffs this year, I'm not as optimistic next year anymore. Tougher schedule, got to replace half the starters. And like, I don't know right now that I can sit here and just project blindly. I can't project blindly they're going to be in the playoffs next year. So like, I'm all in on this year. They got to beat Florida to do that, period. But Florida's not a very good team. That's the other thing. Florida's not a very good team. They've lost losing records for 3 years in a row. They're projected to win 5 or 6 games this year. I know they have the worst schedule in the world, but like, you got to beat teams like that. I'm sorry if you're going to be a real high-level playoff caliber team.
All right, first of all, you can't look ahead in college football anymore. Okay,
right.
You got 41 new players on this team this year. Sitting here a year ago trying to say, oh, they can do this next year. You have no clue who's even on the
correct. Team. That's what I just said. Hello.
Yeah. Do you remember?
Let me repeat what I said. I said last season.
For 10 minutes. Okay. I don't want to hear anymore. Okay?
I'm only doing it to annoy those guys who posted about me.
I want to go back to the game, but let me just say this about next year. We don't know who's going to be on the team next year. So we can't say, oh, there's a better chance of them going to the playoffs this year than next year or vice versa. It's not based on anything. Okay, let me just make that point. All right.
It's literally what I just said.
No, that's not what you said. But
I'll repeat what I said. I said there's no way to project for next year because they lose 10 starters. You don't know who they're getting, and you know it's a harder schedule. I literally said that.
Okay.
All right. Don't listen.
All right, then we agree. All right, but listen, I want to go back to this issue about must win. Okay. If you asked Mario Cristobal, is this Florida game a must win? Okay, he would probably, you know, it would make him very uncomfortable.
For sure. Good luck asking that question. I want to see you asking that question.
No, I'm not going to, because I already like. Listen, is it a must win? Yeah, it's a must win. Everything that this guy has worked tirelessly for what, 2.5 years essentially since he arrived in Miami. I mean, every day, 18-hour days, all the things he's given up in his personal life and everything else to make Miami football and the reclamation of Miami football the most important thing on the planet. It's all on the line at 3:30 a week from Saturday. I mean, it just is. Like, you can't, like, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke about it. Like, it's on the line. It is. Everybody's around the country is watching. All these guys that have invested their millions of dollars to support this program. You know, yeah, it's unconditional, but like they care. Like everybody cares. You know, the people at the university who look at all the money being spent on football, you know, the academicians, did I pronounce that right, Matt? You know, all around that any university who don't like to see all the money being spent on athletics because they feel it should be spent on, you know, their area of the university, which is a higher an institution of higher learning. All these things are hidden subplots in this. Okay, so yeah, everything's on the line. They got to win this game. If not, they're almost back at square one because it will have proven that they're not over the hump yet. And this is not a big hump, this Florida team. Okay,
right? That's the bottom line.
Correct. Yeah, it's not a big hump. You know, I think they're better than people think. I think their quarterback's very capable. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I think they got a couple of receivers that are decent. You know, I'm still learning about their team. I know they got O-line problems. Apparently, their D-line is so-so. But they're better than people think because last year they were very young, and now those kids are older and should be better players if they're developing their players. But this is not a big hump for Miami to get over. Yeah, it is a must-win in that regard. But let's say you don't win. Let's say you screw up, you turn the ball over, make all kinds of mistakes, have busts in that secondary that everybody thinks weak and everything else, and everything goes wrong, and you don't win. Mario Cristobal's got to pick up the pieces of that. Okay, you still got 11 games to play. You still got an ACC title to try to go win. You can't have the whole world go in the tank and fall apart if you don't win this game. So it's very hard for that label to be put on from that standpoint, and that's what makes it such an interesting topic. For Billy Napier, yeah, this is everything because he's got the hardest schedule in college football, and they aren't winning a lot of those games. Okay, and if he doesn't have a victory over Miami to hang his hat on, his chances of keeping his job are pretty slim, especially when they think they have Lane Kiffin on deck to come to Gainesville. So from that standpoint, definitely must win. From the Mario Cristobal standpoint, reality must win, but I don't think you're going to get certainly the head coach to look at it that way. He can't because of the reasons I just said, even if the outside world wants to so badly put that label on it. Hope I summed that up pretty good. You know, we did our best there, but it's a very intriguing topic as the Canes get ready to go to Gainesville. All right. So what's the biggest impediment to Miami winning this game? It's containing Graham Mertz. You know, he's a quality quarterback, came from Wisconsin, quietly put up some real monster stats last year. He completed 72.9% of his passes last year, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. This is a guy that is very accurate, completes a high percentage of his passes, as I just said, protects the football, doesn't put the football in harm's way very often. There was only one game the whole season where he didn't complete at least 60% of his passes, and that was Florida State late in the year. He completed above 70% of his passes in 6 straight games in one stretch of the season. So stopping him without question is a very big deal. They picked up a guy that Miami looked at a little bit in the transfer portal in Elijah Badger. He's a 5th-year senior from Arizona State, was one of the top receivers in the transfer portal. So they picked him up. They've also got back a really speedy kid who played last year as a freshman by the name of Eugene Wilson. And he's a potential big play guy that Mertz will be looking at quite a bit undoubtedly in this game. So Miami's got to be able to contain those 2 receivers for starters to hold this team back. Now, a lot of people say the offensive line is horrendous and it might not be very good, but their passing game is a quick passing game. So that's going to negate Miami's pass rush a little bit. I think if Miami can get ahead and get them out of that game plan of quick passes, quick screens, a lot of short balls, and get them out of that game plan that they are certain to have, that will be to Miami's favor, because then you could tee off on the quarterback and put a lot more pressure on them. Florida's O-line did allow 39 sacks last season. Okay, that was one of the worst in college football. So those are just a couple of the side plots, and we take a look at it today with a story on the website. Matt, you took a deep dive into this Florida Gators passing game, how it might match up against the Miami secondary. Give us your thoughts.
All right, sure. Why not? You also left out his favorite receiver from Wisconsin, which their offense was awful when he was there, their passing offense. And that guy had 689 yards last time they were together. So they got 3 really good receivers, a really good tight end, 3 returning starters on the offensive line. If it was Miami fans, people would be like, oh my God, our offense is going to be great, right? So, and, yes, they have a short passing game, of course. Last year, this is according to Pro Football Focus for what it's worth, right? So 231 passes were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, behind the line or within 9 yards, I should say, the line of scrimmage. And then only 108 were 10 or more yards beyond the line of scrimmage. But with that said, they found ways to make explosive plays that Miami didn't last year under Tyler Van Dyke. And this is probably going to be a surprise to some people who like to say, oh, Mertz only throws short passes. If you look at the stats from last season, average yards per attempt passing, Mertz had an average of 8.0 yards per attempt. Cam Ward, 7.7 yards per attempt. Okay. And Florida had the number 40 passing attack. And of course, Washington State had number 4, but that's because Washington State threw the ball all the time. So, Cam Ward's numbers were inflated to some extent, touchdowns, yards, because they threw the ball so much and so far down the field at Washington State, but not with the same average per attempt success that Mertz had, which is surprising to me a little bit. And then Mertz also had a higher NFL passer rating adjusted by Pro Football Focus, 110.6 to Cam Ward's 100.7. And the passes that were deep throws of 20 or more yards last year, Mertz was 16 for 39, and he had an 85.8 passer rating in those situations, which is elite. So I mean, he can throw the ball deep. When it's 20 or more yards down the field, he throws on target. He had 5 touchdowns out of those 39 attempts, 16 completions, 5 were touchdowns. A third of his passes that were 20 or more yards were touchdowns, which means when Miami starts to cheat up and press, he's going to hit you over the top, and he's good enough to make you pay. So when you combine that with the Miami secondary being a question mark to me, I know fans want to say, oh, no, it's great. The secondary is going to be amazing. Okay, fine. I'll believe it when I see it. You got one starter back who's Darryl Porter, who I think is great, but he had all of 0 interceptions as a full-time starter last year. But I still do think he's really, really good as a cover corner, okay? I think he'll get 3 or 4 interceptions this year. I really do. And be very good in coverage. Aside from him, I like Mish Powell at safety, but then you're just relying on Jaden Harris as a first-time, full-time starter. He was hit or miss last year, starting a couple of games when Kinchins was not around. It was hurt and opted out. And then you've got, at cornerback, it's sort of unclear. I think Damari Brown will be at nickel, which he last played in high school, right? He started 4 games at the end of last year and was good. And then you've got maybe the Marshall guy, Deani Hill, starting at corner, or maybe the former Vanderbilt transfer who was on the bench almost all last year, except for the FSU game where he did okay. So Jadeus Richard. So, I mean, we'll see.
OJ Frederick might work his way into that conversation too. We'll see.
Oh, yeah. OJ Frederick for sure. Yeah. I mean, if they want to start a true freshman in game 1 at Florida, more power to him. Yeah, I think he'll play a lot. I'd be surprised if he starts. But, yeah, I mean, if he's their best corner and they have full trust in him, great, But I've seen.
It doesn't make sense to start him in that.
I've seen true freshmen who look amazing in practices, and you put them in that first game, and they flip out, they freak out, they start doing things they're not supposed to, they just lose their minds a little bit. I mean, think about it, right? OJ, has he played in front of 80,000, screaming crazy fans that are, with everything on the line on national TV? Maybe only 7 or 8 times. So no, so true freshmen have to get used to that. But
those speakers that they have on the practice field right now are pretty loud, but I don't know that it's the same as being in the swamp.
Yeah. And then on top of that, the biggest key for me, we're going to say the biggest key for Florida is Mertz against the Miami secondary, because he has weapons and obviously the things I just spoke about. But really, to me, the underlying key because of that is Miami's defensive line. Miami's defensive line, to me, is the most important part of this game. Not the offensive line, not the running game, getting things going to open things up for Cam Ward, not fumbling the ball because he has small hands, okay? It's the defensive line, because if the defensive line doesn't get there enough and doesn't make Mertz uncomfortable enough, he'll hit 72% of his passes, he'll hit deep shots, he's got talent all over the field at receiver and at tight end, pass catchers, and he will make Miami's secondary pay, okay? That's my opinion. Now, the good news is I think Miami's additions in the portal will be more than good enough against that offensive line to get consistent pressure against Mertz. I know I'm so negative, everybody. I know I'm the worst. I tell my truth. My truth is this Miami defensive line is better than the Florida offensive line and will get pressure on Mertz. And my guess is they're not even going to worry about the run game to start off. They're just going to pin their ears back and hit Mertz and get after Mertz and make him uncomfortable from play one. That's the Lance Guidry I know. It's not, hey, guys, let's keep the linebackers behind the defensive linemen, the safeties behind them, and let's look for the run and then adjust if they pass. It's not look fastball, adjust to the curveball, okay? It's get after Mertz, make him uncomfortable, and then go from there. Like, that should be the game plan, because I think Miami has a distinct advantage off the edge with a healthy Akeem Messidor, Ruben Bain. Good luck stopping those guys. Tyler Barron, inside or outside, good luck stopping him. Some people think he could be a first-round draft pick, okay? People have been saying that. I know they said the same thing about Zion Nelson, okay, but back in the day. But, like, that's the kind of talent he has, okay? And then you got run-stopping guys like Simeon Barrow and C.J. Clark. So, like, you know, they've got a really nice mixture. You bring in Elijah Alston to rush the passer in third downs. Like, they've got a great mixture of body types and combinations on the defensive line to keep those guys fresh. Offensive line coaches and head coaches tend to keep those offensive linemen in for pretty much the entire game. So if you get to the fourth quarter and you got these Miami defensive linemen rotating around with that kind of talent and they're still fresh, like, good luck to Florida in the fourth quarter if they're in a close game. Like, they will be getting murdered out there. That's my prediction. I'm so negative. That's what I believe.
I'll co-sign everything you said. All right, so we've got those stories for you to check out on the website today. A couple other things that I'll mention as well. Our Inside the Line series continues, this time with a little get-to-know session with new Miami Hurricanes commit Micah Newton. He's a defensive lineman from Newberry High School, and you guys can get to know him a little bit as Zuby Charles goes one-on-one with him. Make sure you check that out. We have a story on 2027 wide receiver Julius Jones, a guy that is starting to get accolades. Miami was his first real big offer. He tells us about it in a story that's on the website today. And we start to take a look at a big game this weekend between Luke Nichols' team from Georgia and American Heritage, and which means that Luke Nichol and Malachi Toney, who are going to be teammates at Miami in 2026, will be competitors on a national stage this weekend as part of the Broward Showcase. The games are on national TV. Your really only chance to get to see Luke Nichol if you live in South Florida before he arrives at Miami in January. You will like him. He's really coming on and becoming a good quarterback. So that we start to look at that game here with a story on Luke Nichol and Malachi Toney. And we will be out there, obviously, this weekend, live from the crib. The young guys will be out there bringing you coverage of how those guys do against each other. And we'll have some coverage of some of the other games going on this weekend, as well as big official opening weekend of high school football in South Florida. All right, well, that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. If you're on YouTube right now, you like the show and channel, hit your subscribe and like buttons. Helps us with the algorithms in growing our audience. If you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please head on over to our website, CaneSport.com. Become a member of our great community of fans. You will not be sorry. It's a fun place to hang out every single day. We do everything we can do around the clock to make your fan experience as a Miami Hurricane fan as great as it could possibly be. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time, everybody.